improving at something when you practice is like pretty satisfying.
Yeah.
You sort of see that, when you do hard work and put effort into something, you see sort of gains.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool thing about speed cubing is you can track that.
Yeah.
If you practice for an hour a day for a month, you'll get better.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
But because you solve it so quickly, I mean, I assume that improvements would be very minimal.
Yeah. So, for example, over the first, let's say, 4 years of my cubing, I first learned how to solve it, and I got down to 8 seconds.
Uh-huh.
And the next 4 years, I got from 8 seconds to 7 seconds.
Yeah.
So I'm not improving that much.
Yeah.
But there's lots of different events to improve in as well. So say for some of the bigger cubes, my times are still improving.
Ah, yeah.
But for the 3x3, yeah, not much.
Not much, yeah. And I noticed that what I found fascinating is some people solve Rubik's Cube just like blindfolded. Just like, can you do that? Are you able to?
Yeah, I can do that. I don't really practice it that much. It's a lot harder than normal solving. And even like the guys who have the blindfolded records, far more impressive than normal records, I think.
Are they able to transition out of the blindfold and still do really well?
Yeah, some of them. But you find that in speed cubing, a lot of people are sort of specialists in that they'll practice specific events to become world class at them. Because I think there's 17 different, don't quote me on that, 17 different events in the World Cube Association, which is like the governing body. And so you'll get people who specialize in blindfolded solving, specialize in, big cubes, specialize in other sorts of puzzles. Because to try and practice everything and become world-class at everything is pretty much impossible.
Yeah, I could imagine, because there's so many different types. Yeah.
And there's different skills and, just because you're good at this, the 3x3 doesn't mean you'll be good at, other puzzles necessarily.
But I'm just trying to wrap my brain around how they could do it or how you could do it blindfolded.
Right.
So, because you can't see like a cross or anything.
No. So you memorize the cube beforehand, obviously.
Yeah, so you inspect it.
Yeah. And you memorize it. People have different methods to memorizing things, but you would use, letters, visual memory, numbers, that sort of thing to memorize where the pieces are and where they need to go. And then you've got sort of a system by which, you convert that memory into actually solving the cube.
Yeah, is that something like that you do? So when you inspect it, do you already know like what kind of moves you need to do?
Not the whole solve by any means. So when I'm inspecting, I normally plan for the first 8 to 12 moves, and then a whole solve is normally about 60 moves. So after I execute those initial 8 to 12 moves, I have to sort of keep looking ahead as to what's coming next and do more moves and keep tracking, where the pieces are going and what I'm going to solve next.
And
so I only plan the start in inspection. Yeah.
But you still do it so quickly, like under.
Yeah, that's the key, I suppose, is being able to not stop and whilst you're solving something, look ahead as to what you're solving next.
Do you ever have you ever made a mistake and then you have had to quickly readjust?
Yeah, all the time.
All the time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it a real...
That's an art as well.
Yeah, so
it's trying to sort of minimize damage.
Minimize damage, yeah. How do you go in competition with that? Like when you're trying to
probably not well.
Probably not well.
Because if you make a mistake, and particularly if you're under pressure in the finals of a big competition, if you make a mistake, that's just going to compound the pressure. And,
yeah. Is that amongst the elite cubers? Is that kind of the what separates the elite cubers on a given day in a competition?
So separates the elite cubers between themselves or them from the others?
No, between just that select group in terms of speed. What?
Yeah, good question. That's actually a very good question as to what determines. So say you've got 10 guys, they all average 8.5 seconds. Who wins?
Yeah, say with maths or something.
Yeah. Well, pretty much. So a solve time is going to come down to sort of two components. One, it's going to be the number of moves you take, and two, it's going to be how fast you turn. So I suppose it is whoever does the most efficient solutions and turns the fastest. And turning the fastest also is derived from sort of how little you pause as well.
Okay.
So basically, turning fast and coming up with efficient solutions. How do you do that? You've got to be relaxed. You've got to. Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I see you when you solve. You look very focused as you're solving. Is that? Do you feel any nerves as you're solving the cube, or are you just really focused on what you have to do? Like, do you notice like the external variables? So, like, obviously, I assume in these competitions you have like an audience like of spectators.
Yeah. For the 3x3 cube, because it's such a short thing. Like for me, it's 7 seconds. I don't really have time to sort of think about that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But for the bigger cubes where I'm solving for 1 or 2 minutes, if I'm halfway through the solve and it's really good solve, my heart rate might increase a little bit. Okay, if I don't mess up and keep going really well, this could be some sort of record. And then that slows me down.
Yeah. I'm assuming that this is where you write your jokes. And for instance,
yes.
Do you just do like kind of free roam, like just write whatever you think comes in your head and just write it down?
Are we talking about process here?
Yeah, we are.
Process. Well, I'm sure. And this probably leads into a question that you might ask about advice to people who want to give comedy a crack.
Yeah.
How do you get started? Where do you begin? And I suppose this is true too. It comes back to what you're saying too about when does a person begin to accept that there's a way in which they can be funny in a formal sense that is then termed stand-up?
Mm-hmm.
Because in the first instance, you should be looking at yourself sort of remotely, so to speak, observing yourself in the social setting and getting a sense of how it is that you are funny. Because everyone is sort of different in very sort of subtle ways, So first, find that uniqueness in yourself. And then outside of that, it is really about observation. And everything is really a joke. And that's the hard thing often for people to accept, because certain situations in life will present to you a whole canon of premises. And you'll think, wow, that's fantastic. Like, for instance, you'll be looking at... you might go into a news agency, and you'll see a whole, there's rows and rows and rows of stacks of glossy magazines. Glossy magazines, they call them glossy magazines because it's all glossy. The pages are all. That's what they want because it's glamour, and it's prestige and all these things, and that hard copy form is always attached to those notions of glamour and prestige. However, we know that with the changes in media, that eventually all hard copy formats are going to, no longer exist.
Yeah.
So what happens to the glossy magazine? What are they going to do about that? Where's Harper's going to go? Where's GQ going to go? Where are these magazines? How are they going to get that prestige and that exclusivity built into their product now that the hard copy version doesn't exist? So what is the thing they're going to sacrifice? Because really, if they're going to hold on to the hard copy format, then they've got to sacrifice something. Obviously, they're not going to sacrifice the glossiness because that's the whole purpose of the content.
Yeah.
It's to remain that sort of exclusive, high-end sort of appearance. So eventually, you're just going to end up with glossy magazines with one page in them. But that one page is going to be really glossy. In fact, it's going to be so glossy that it's more like a mirror. If the lighting conditions are wrong, you won't be able to. There's too much glare. You won't be able to read it anyway. But it doesn't matter because there'll be no content. There's only one page. So, you begin to... That's an example of just observing in the first instance.
Yeah.
Glossy magazines, they're a real energy sort of demanding kind of built product that takes a lot of work to generate, to come out and then produce something that is very high-end in its appearance. Okay, but that's going to die soon. So what happens after that? What happens as that death sort of evolves?
Yeah.
And so that's when you begin to make the associations. So the associations is the next thing. Observe, and then do your links to associations. Now, the associations could be a consequence, or they could be association with something else that is in opposition.
Okay.
So, and when it comes to all jokes, and this, I'll be challenged on this in the future, I'm sure, because Jono Talks podcast is going to go global, man. So I will be challenged on this. But all jokes are essentially an observation of reality that is coming in conflict with a desire. It's reality in conflict with the desire. So if you have a joke that you've written yourself, and it's sort of come out of organically, just out of walking down the street and making an observation, write it down and then break it down. Identify what is the reality and what is the desire that it's coming in conflict with. So, for instance, in my magazine example, which isn't a joke of mine necessarily, I just plucked it. It's just an idea I kind of had yesterday sort of thing.
Yeah.
The reality is hard copy's dying.
Yeah.
That's the reality. The desire is, but we've invested so much in this product, we want to keep it going. So desire is about want, need, longing for. That's all the desire stuff. We want to keep it going. So whilst that reality doesn't change, which is obviously not going to, print media is going to die, and there's a consistency with the desire, then there's going to be a consequence. And hopefully, as you begin to unpack that, the consequence gives you something that's surprising to the audience or funny,
Yeah.
So so people are sort of starting out, get your ideas, write them down, see where the conflict is between the desire and reality. It will be there somewhere. And then that can begin to be the shape that you adopt towards writing other jokes.